Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Alex from TCG Discussions, and I'm coming at you with a Dark Broly discussion video today about how to address this deck on the ban list. I've been talking with some friends about the deck and what you can do, and I really think that there's really one good way to take the deck, and I think that everything I'm about to say is like just fair for all people involved, because the thing is that Dark Broly is incredibly powerful and fragile at the same time. How you nerf Dark Broly will just depend on whether or not you outright kill a leader that has not menaced the game as like a tier 0 top deck, right? Or Vegex, for that example, right? So Dark Broly is not in the same conversation as Vegex. Vegex has terrorized and come back after 3 different nerfs on the ban list, from cards hit, to cards hit, to cards hit, and it is still around. And I'm gonna make another part of an argument on why just outright nerfing Dark Broly into the ground is not acceptable when basically the format is going to change a little bit, but not much. And yeah, it's going to be dependent on what Bandai decides to ban, of course, so I could be a little bit wrong in this, but I have a feeling that this ban list, while big, is also underwhelming. Errata list, while big, is going to be a little bit more underwhelming than what we think, because right now there are too many decks to address without like the ban list just sweeping over and just like crushing like every top deck. And the reality is that how you nerf these decks in this upcoming ban list, like I discussed in my last video, is going to determine which decks that are like top 5 right now, right? So if you nerf the top 3, which you'd say is like Mecha Frieza, Dark Broly, King Piccolo, right? Like, let's just take those 3, for example. You nerf those top 3, then Sin Shenron and whatever else is right behind it, Vegex or something. Well, Vegex is probably going to get hit, but, Vegex or whatever deck is 4 and 5 are immediately just going to become number 1. And that's why, like, this ban list, while kind of needed, if you think the format's unhealthy, which I think it is healthy, I just think that there's really powerful decks that are annoying to play against. But there's a variety of it, and I think that, again, you just have to be really careful with this, because what you might do is just pass the torch to Red Broly, right? That's not something anybody would want to see. If Red Broly become the de facto best deck in the game, I guarantee no one's happy about that. So, and one of the best checks to Red Broly is Dark Broly, because you can easily double remove or Broken Seal remove the card, and like their whole turn stops. So, onto the Dark Broly, what I would want to see, and why I think that this is the best place to start with nerfing Dark Broly. And if past this nerf, he just continues to get more support or whatever that makes him broken, then I would look at nerfing him harder than this. I would have an errata text on the front of the leader that says you can no longer play battle cards that are not black in your deck. Okay, so what does this do? This immediately removes Champa and Heartfelt Plea from the deck, which I know everyone around should be a fan of. This would force people to play basically all the same in-house cards. Yes, they will still have access to the Gogeta TP, which they should, and the Fearless Fusion, because it's a tech engine that every other Black Saiyan leader can play. And that's why I think that it matters that Dark Broly is able to play those cards, because it's more obvious. For example, the difference between Gogeta thwarting the Dark Empire and Champa is I can turn my 30k Dark Broly into a 40k Double Strike. Whereas when I play Thwarting the Dark Empire, you see the card. Does that make sense? So when you like Champa which in my opinion, Champa and Kai need to be banned anyway. They're incredibly oppressive cards in the game. I don't understand. Okay, oppressive isn't the right word. They are incredibly stupid game enders, and they have existed in the game for far too long. Champa's been around since set 1, set 2, set 1 probably, and then Kai came out in World Tournament, and I would not be surprised if a statistic came out that showed that 40% of games won in Dragon Ball were by Champa or Kai. I would not be shocked at that at all. It's stupid. You shotgun a leader to 100,000 and slap double strike on it. You turn any other battle card into double strike. There are people who play Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time Unleashed, the SCR, to make it a 50k double strike with Champa. That's ridiculous. If it doesn't have double strike or triple strike, you shouldn't be able to give it double strike or triple strike. And that's why I think that those cards need to be banned. But back to Dark Broly. Immediately, you curb the presence of the attack, right? You just immediately, I'm at 2 life, this card's swinging for single, and then now all of a sudden it's not swinging for single. Whereas if thwarting is played, it's swinging for double strike, so whether or not you stop it is an easier decision for your opponent to make. Secondly, it addresses Heartfelt Plea, which needs to go. That card either needs to be banned or limited to a set of leaders where it is not a problem, except for in those leaders. For starters, any deck right now can play the card. Skillless Goku could play the card. It wouldn't be hard to play it at all. And acting like Heartfelt Plea is not either +6 for Dark Broly or you crit a life at +4 is stupid. And you get a triple striker. And no part of that should exist in a deck where it already goes tall and wide. And sacks one of the 30k swings on the turn to become another 30k triple strike. It's ridiculous. And personally, you immediately slow the deck to a different type of play style other than aggro rush and put a triple striker that draws 2 or crits you. Right? It's now just either aggro rush or you have to play defensively. Secondly, and this is something that I need to talk about on this channel. As a Dark Broly player, anyone who's not a Dark Broly player probably feels salty by what I'm about to say. But you really need to get over the idea that Dark Broly is the most unanswerable best deck in the game. Anyone who holds that opinion, you're wrong. You're actually just wrong. Okay, I don't want to call people out by saying that you're not allowed to have an opinion, because you are. But Dark Broly has the most answers of any meta deck, and I'm about to explain how that's the case. So take King Piccolo, for example. The deck already should be maining and playing Violent Rays. It should already be playing Toppo. Now, Toppo doesn't hurt Dark Broly as much, but it should be playing these cards. Why? Because Dark Broly is not the only deck that swings with 20k or more. All of Mecha Frieza's good cards swing basically 20k or more. All of Sin Shenron swings 20k or more. Most of what Soul Striker now swings with is 20k or more. There are a lot of decks that swing 20k or more. Even King Piccolo puts cards up that swing 20k or more. Like when the Piccolo evolves and buffs Tambourine, Tambourine swings twice for 35, then 40k. The Piccolo swings for 40k, not 40k, 20k. The New Ruler comes in, swings for 20k. The Dictator, if you play it, even though it's kind of like a one-of win harder card, it swings for 20k. Kai swings for 40k. There are lots of decks that have cards that swing for 20k or more. Okay? But what are the answers to King Piccolo? Koitsukai? Well, who's playing Koitsukai? How many decks can play efficiently Koitsukai? Not many. Not well. The decks? Other mill leaders? Other than that, you're not really playing Koitsukai. You're comboing it from hand after you draw it just to get its activation effects. So it's not even played best in those decks. And what's another one? Toppo? Well, Toppo's good against everything, right? So that's just King Piccolo alone, right? Let's move on to blue for a second. Heroic Prospect Trunks. Heroic Prospect Trunks is a completely different story than Toppo, because you're not feeling the drop area, right? So it has that. And literally, it's not worth it. Unless you can guarantee that you're killing through blue, it's not worth it. And there's lots of cards that blue can play to stop you, right? Like Blue Baby, for example, plays an insane amount of counter cards already. When they play Heroic Prospect Trunks, it is never going to be worth it for you to try to play through that. It just probably won't. Unless you know that like you're starving them of resources and you can map that out, but it's really hard. It's really, 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 really hard. Let's talk about green for a second. Dormant, Charasmatic, right? Two of the most powerful cards that are all played off of one of the most broken unisons in the game, Demigra, Unison, Sorcery. And that's not including all the other unisons that you might play for your deck already, right? Now, Dormant does limit it to 2 attacks, but it still limits the deck to 2 attacks. And depending on what you have or on your board, those 2 attacks just don't go through. So, yeah, Dark Broly can still keep playing cards, but it's not going to do as much, right? And how you play those matchups matter, right? Let's talk about yellow for a second. It has Nimbus, it has Mecha, it has Zamasu, it has 900 different resources to tap down cards, to flat out, it has Ape, it has everything. Literally every tool in the game to deter any amount of aggression. And then it has Kai and then Secret ID, okay? Let me just say this. There is one card that every single deck can play that outright stops an entire turn, especially if you do the errata for Heartfelt Plea, and that is Mechikabura the Broken Seal. It literally says Dark Broly cannot play other than the 7-drop. And then guess what? If you make the errata and you remove Heartfelt Plea, that means they only get 1 7-drop 30k. Or Gogeta stuff, right? Now, I will opt for that, okay? I will, or, Overwhelm or whatever. Like, obviously, Dark Broly can do other things, but you primarily stop the deck's ability to go wide for free or at low cost. And you can play all these other cards. Like Yellow, for example, has Vegeta Unison of Fury. Mecha can play Vegeta Unison of Fury. Sin Shenron can play Vegeta Unison of Fury. And it outright stops the deck, period, for 5 turns. That, like, Demigra at that point is the only thing worth attacking with. Until turn 5, it's not doing anything. Now, do you play other cards that get under the curve? Yes, you do. But in most decks, for Dark Broly, especially right now, you don't. And even if you do, that's not saying that your opponent doesn't have the cards to stop the cards attacking the Unison. It still is costly, right? And again, Dark Broly has more answers to it as a deck than any top deck in the game, period. It's not close. You can look at all the ways that Dark Broly can be hurt, and it hurts it extremely badly. Whereas every other top deck in the game has 2 to 3 answers. And multiple of these decks, right? Multiple of these decks can play multiple answers to the deck if you feel it's that oppressive of a deck. If you're underprepared, it might feel oppressive. If you're readily prepared with a good strategy, you will destroy the deck. Mecha Frieza has one of the best matchups possible. One, Dark Broly to play its cards efficiently generally taps energy. Well, with Vegeta Unison Fury, Unite Assemble, Mecha will run the deck over. It just does. Right? Not a lot to say. Against aggression, like Majin Vegeta, you can just run the deck over. You just do. Right? Like, if you look at any other deck, and I'm just going to say this again, you look at any other deck in the game, there are no decks in this game that are hurt more by the same answers that Dark Broly plays. I'm sorry, that go against Dark Broly for the cards that they play than any other deck in the game. Like Dark Broly is the most answerable top deck in the game right now. And to people's effects, videos I've seen made about this, I think Crossroll just released one, and it's inspired me to make this video. There is no such thing as you're altering your deck to play against Dark Broly. That is a complete, misnomer. You should be playing these cards anyway. If you're playing blue and not playing Heroic Prospect Trunks at a competitive level, you're probably not doing something right. If you're playing a yellow and you don't have Vegeta, Unison, and Fury, or you don't have Nimbus or something, you're probably not playing it right, at least in the side. If you're playing Sin Shenron, you don't have Vegeta, Unison, and Fury, you want to lose to the Mirror and you want to lose to Dark Broly. If you're playing King Piccolo and you don't have Violent Rays and Toppo in your deck, or at least sided, you're probably doing something wrong. If you're playing green and don't have Dormant at a competitive level, you're probably doing something wrong. Black, if you're playing black and you don't have Broken Seal, if you don't have the Bardock, SS Bardock the Tenacious, if you don't have, Protected the People, which isn't as good against Dark Broly as against other cards, like other decks. But if you don't have these things, then again, you're just not wanting to do as much as you could. And it's not that the only Bardock Unleashed, right? Bardock Unleashed is the only niche tech card against Dark Broly where it really doesn't apply to any other deck other than Sin Shenron. And that's about it. Again, Dark Broly is one of the most answerable decks in the game. The question is whether or not your strategy can still play a couple tech cards and still play, and most decks can. That's why KP has such a good matchup against it, because Dark Broly, yes, will swing, get them to 3, they'll awaken, get to 4, start playing their game, and then all of a sudden Violent Rays turns the entire deck off. Again, I can't stress this enough. There aren't any good ways for you to accurately address any other deck in the game, the way that Dark Broly can be answered by every single color. And the funny thing is most of these decks most of the colors in the game can play 2 to 3 cards if Dark Broly was really that bad. And so what does it leave us with? I think that when we talk about Dark Broly, we need to approach this with some sense. Okay? Nerfing it is a very big deal. And again, I'm not trying to say people are dumb or anything like that for not thinking about this. I'm just saying, if you think Dark Broly is truly that oppressive of a deck, which it's very good, it's insanely good, I won't lie, but you simultaneously don't recognize that it is beatable by other decks, very beatable, and those decks have way better answers against you than you possibly could do against them. For example, what is Dark Broly's best answer to Mecha? Not a whole lot. Mecha is going to do what it's going to do. You cannot stop everything Mecha does. It kind of just does it. What is Dark Broly's best answer against King Piccolo? Kai? Brainwash? No, Brainwash? No, not Brainwash no more. What's it? It's the other Mass Saiyan guy. Secret ID? Barely? Drum? Barrier? Violent Rays? Stop? The fact that it has the Unison and Yamcha reducing your Dark Brolys to 15? I mean, there's just not a lot that I can say that's this is the most broken thing ever. Is Wolfang? I mean, there's lots of things that Red can do to just deter and slow it down. What does Dark Broly do against the Jax? It's a race. It's an actual race. And it's not that, again, that Dark Broly can't beat these decks. That is not what I'm saying at all. It definitely can beat these decks. What I am saying, though, is that it takes a skilled player to beat most of these decks, and even then it's uncertain. For example, any Dark Broly player playing right now knows that missequencing with Dark Broly can cost you the game. Everyone thinks, oh, you just warp 6 cards for free and play this really broken battle card, and then all of a sudden you got this free advantage and it just costed you nothing. But if you don't manipulate your drop area correctly, you could end up warping more cards than you want. If you overwhelm when there's too many balls in there, you could just throw your balls away, so there goes your free plays. It's about getting cards back into your drop area so you can efficiently play as many cards as you can. And if you're not optimizing that, you will lose most of these games against these top decks. And like that's just the thing of it. I mean, like Dark Broly against Red Broly, it's very hard. You have to have Broken Seal, basically, and Berserker, and say, die. Meanwhile, playing defense, because the deck can actually just run you over. Which brings me to the next segment of this video. If you nerf Dark Broly too hard, like nerfing every other deck, you have to realize that Dark Broly will not have any recovery point. So, for example, if Vegeta as a leader gets banned on the ban list, Vegeta's leaders can just go play the Black Mass Saiyan leader that bursts 3, and then on the other side, when it's awakened after untapping energy, just puts cards back in your drop area. It's an extremely different story. And there's still ways for you to mill with the deck because you have the Vegeta, the Vegeta that mills 3, you have the Human Extinction Attack that mills 4. There's lots of ways for you to still play a Vegeta deck with this leader. And that is what will happen. They have to do something to Kai, in my opinion, in order to hit Vegeta, period. Like, it has to either have unique or be banned. It has to be one of those things. Otherwise, if you ban the Vegeta leader, they will just go to the second best thing. And they will continue to search for the next best mill leader. Over and over and over again. That as long as it's a Black Saiyan. And then, Mecha Frieza, the only reason to ban the leader or errata it into the ground is because it literally ruins every other yellow leader. Because there's no point in playing any other yellow leader right now. You just might as well play Mecha or lose. Because Mecha just has that many good matchups. Now, one thing they could do is, in my opinion, is just errata Unite Assemble to say U9 leaders only. That would be fair. But again, you just nerf Dark Broly and then you hand the reins back to Mecha. You hand the reins to these other decks, as I said before. Sin Shenron. How do you nerf Sin Shenron? Because, if you ban the TP, then you just give them control. And they still have a lot of aggro pieces to the deck, honestly. If you nerf Salzeno, which everybody agrees needs to be nerfed in some way with an errata or be banned, then it just switches to the Sin SCR. And again, you nerf Dark Broly, it has no way to recover if it's bad enough. And then if you nerf any of these other decks, they have 5 different ways to play. Take Soul Striker. I mean, blue's not a very good color right now anyway, other than the Bojack Soul Striker stuff that Frisco played at the Anderson Regional. But I'll just tell you straight up right now, that deck is broke. That deck is really good. And how do you nerf Soul Striker without, what would you nerf in blue, period? Right? How are you going to stop Blue Baby from just taking over? I don't know. And when we talk about these leaders, they have so many other options. You could ban any number of negates that are for blue and baby, and guess what? There are still 50 other blue negates that they could probably still play. And we get bent out of shape over Dark Broly, and I feel like the salt in the wound is just very real for a lot of people. I hear talks about Dark Broly as if it has won every single tournament since its release. I'll have you know that Dark Broly was not even played on release because the ideas and concepts around it were, this deck isn't good. And it has lots of answers. And then they continue to come out with more answers for the deck, and people are still like, this deck is still broken. Now, I can say that if you make it have only black battle cards only, you nerf the deck's power immensely. No more Champas, no more Heartfelt Pleas. And I think everyone would be excited for that. And Gogeta the Thwarting Dark Empire, as a double strike card, is a unique double strike that you put on the board. It is way more answerable, way more considerate. Does it fuel the drop area with Union Fusion? Yes. Does it allow them to extend their free play cards? Yes. But you want to know what? You're not getting 40 or 50k double strike dumped on you. You see it right there. And the other thing about Thwarting the Dark Empire and other cards like it, right? When you play out-of-house cards, like that card, 2 things. 1, they cannot be used for the leader's combo based on its effect, the leader's effect. Two, they have basically nothing to really combo with other than super combos on those cards. Now, is that powerful? Yes. But when you start comboing off every other thing in your hand, you're dwindling your hand advantage down, you're dwindling your defense resources down, and you better be setting it up for a kill turn, because if you start wasting cards on an attack that doesn't go through, or it can get Heroine's Lineaged, or answered, or removed, or anything like that, you just run the risk of, like, dying. Like, actually dying. Like, for example, right? This is just so good. When you think about Sin Shenron, do you want to know what the number one card I'm thinking of is? Is it even worth it to combo on any of my swings, period, especially with, like, thwarting or anything, because Haze Shenron exists? I mean, think of how, like, Sin Shenron has, like, 90 answers to Dark Broly. It just does. It has a revenge blocker that if you say no combos, it's just going to say, okay, combo this card, restand my revenge blocker, your card dies. Oh, look, you KO'd it. I drew 2 cards and then replaced it to replace a chain. I played Vegeta Unison of Fury. I tapped 6 to bring this card back. Oh, look, your Dark Broly, that just, is 40k, 50k double strike now. Thanks, Champa. How about just KO with Haze Shenron? So it's like, again, we play decks at the top level that have tons of answers to Dark Broly. And there's just no good way of nerfing this leader if you nerf it into the ground and not give it a fighting chance. You just be eliminating it. Now, I know I'm fighting for this deck as a Dark Broly player. I admit my bias in that. But I'm also speaking truth when I say that this deck is the most answerable deck that we have as a meta deck in the game. There is not another deck like it that gets hit as hard as Dark Broly does. Because Dark Broly cannot put the pressure on like Red Broly. It can't. Red Broly can just swarm the board full of blockers and other cards, and then do multiple chains, and go into Broly SCR, or go in and just rip 3 cards from your hand when it goes into the 6-drop, or rip multiple cards from your hand along the way, giving your opponent, giving you knowledge of your opponent's hand while playing free blockers and doing other stuff, and having access to search Violent Rays on the rip. Yeah. And again, what's Dark Broly? Yes, it beats down with 30Ks. Yes, it plays very powerful cards in it. But when we nerf Dark Broly, I'm just praying, Bandai, if you watch this, please just don't kill the deck. Just make it black battle cards only. You solve so many issues. And to everybody watching this video, right, if you want a tech list of cards for colors that are good against Dark Broly, depending on what leader you're playing, I got you. I play the deck. I know what sucks to play against. I know what's hard, and I know what hurts. And I know how to also play around those. I could also give tips on what you should do and what you should not do, and when you should not do them and when you should do them. So it's like, yeah. I think you guys get the picture, and I hope that addressing Dark Broly is not something that we overcompensate for. A lot of people look at the free play of Dark Broly and they look at it as 0 energy investment. That's not true. A lot of people look at free play from Dark Broly, or little to no free play from little to no play from Dark Broly, like you tap an energy for 1 and then ball it up or something. They look at that and say, yeah, that's not fair because my deck doesn't swing for 30Ks. But you're not complaining when Sin Shenron does it. You're not complaining when, Majin Vegeta does it. You're not complaining when Red Broly does it. You're not complaining when Soul Striker drops like Obuni or something, or Boo Unison, or Bojack cards with dual attack and dual attack unisons, right? No one's talking about that. Everyone's talking about Vegex. So, when Vegex does it, it's because the leader needs to be banned. But when Dark Broly does it, it's because it's just completely free and stupid. Despite the fact that Vegex goes wider and has free 40k combo power into it inherently. When we talk about King Piccolo just spamming a card on every combo of at least once every turn and free playing that way, it's not ridiculous. But when Dark Broly does it for a 30k versus 2 or 3 15ks, it's broken. Right? That's the thing. And we just have to be cognizant of the fact that there are decks that are really good that have like no answers, right? Or no good answers, or answers that don't really matter. Like when you Koitsukai King Piccolo, do you think he cares? He just passes turn and that's it. Or like you do it on your turn, don't care. Like I don't have to free play one card. I don't care. Like I just don't care. Like Toppo, okay, Violent Rays, like negates. Is that all you've got? Like I got 90 cards that can stop you. I don't care that you Koitsukai'd me on one turn. Now, if you do it every turn, it might be a problem. But, like, again, don't really care. Even if I have to just charge and pass again, King Piccolo does not care. Like, your unison, my unison, is drawing me cards, board wiping you, don't care. Which, you know, that's another thing to point out for King Piccolo. That unison, just making Tambourine board wipe Dark Broly, it's hilarious. Play the 4-drop Piccolo, buff at 35, unison -2, board wipe, rejuvenate life. And I mean, like, but it's broken, right? Like it's just, like, I'm going to be, I'm going to, like, find it hilarious. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if this ban list is underwhelming, but it's like, it's good against, like, 3 decks, and then, like, we just like King Piccolo and Shinshan on every other deck that's like literally right there with them, just take over, right? Like the top 3 that people want to address are like Vegeta, Dark Broly, and Mecha. And I'm just going to like laugh when those 3 decks get something done to them. And then Vegeta switches to Black Power Mass Saiyan. Dark Broly, if it gets nerfed too hard, just falls out of the format. Mecha loses U9 and then becomes playably relevant compared to other decks. And then we just let Sin Shenron, King Piccolo, King Vegeta, Blue Baby just completely take over the game. Mechikabura just take over the game. So it's like, yeah, just hand the keys to somebody else that's already been here for far too long anyway. So, I don't know. This ban list is just going to have to be something super big. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hoped that you kind of like see my perspective as a player. Because again, any Dark Broly player who has played against Vegeta, Unison, and Fury knows how unfun that is. That you just don't do anything. You play cards that just sit there for turns. Heroic Prospect Trunks, same thing. Violent Rays, same thing. And it's just hilarious how multiple decks have access to multiple cards. Broken Seal, same thing. And Broken Seal, if you make this errata to Dark Broly, immediately hurts way more. The 7-drop is just way worse. There's no way to play it other than to EX evolve it, or just play it to swing for one time. And then you skip a turn, and then flood them with something else, and then you go again. Broken Seal. So, I don't know. What did you guys think down below? Sorry if I called anybody out, hurt their feelings. I feel very strongly about Dark Broly, and I think that shows. Both by my videos and this, and I really hope that this gives you some ideas, both on how to counter the deck, and also, like, ways that you, if you didn't know, could counter the deck, right? If you have any questions, leave me down in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys next time. This is Alice from TCG Discussions, signing off.